In the glittering television landscape of the 1960s, not every show struck gold. For every legend like The Twilight Zone, there were dozens that fell into oblivion almost overnight. Some were too strange, too political, or simply too ahead of their time. Others crashed under the weight of chaos behind the cameras. Tonight, we reopen the vault and uncover 15 even more 1960s TV shows that were huge flops. Number 15, My Mother the Car, 1965. Few television misfires are as infamous as My Mother the Car. Critics called it the dumbest idea ever to hit prime time. The premise was pure absurdity. A man buys a vintage Porter convertible, only to discover the car is possessed by the spirit of his deceased mother, who speaks to him through the radio. Audiences in 1965 were bewildered. Was it a comedy, a fantasy, or just a joke that never landed? Viewers tuned in expecting lighthearted humor, but instead found themselves trapped in bizarre conversations between man and machine. NBC executives tried to sell it as heartwarming family fare, but the show quickly became a national punchline. Behind the scenes, tensions flared between the writers and producers. Some wanted more slapstick, while others wanted emotional sentiment. The confusion showed. Ratings nosedived after just a few weeks, and NBC pulled the plug after one season. Decades later, My Mother the Car found a strange afterlife as a cult curiosity. It appeared on countless lists of worst shows ever made, yet in a strange way it predicted the anthropomorphic vehicles that would later dominate cartoons and films. In failure, it became prophetic. Sometimes ridicule is the truest form of survival. Number 14, The Tammy Grimes Show, 1966. The Tammy Grimes Show was meant to launch a star. NBC envisioned Broadway darling Tammy Grimes as television's next Lucille Ball. She played a spoiled heiress who refused to grow up relying on her lawyer cousin to bail her out of constant trouble. It was glitzy, it was fast, and it was dead on arrival. Audiences did not understand who they were supposed to root for. Critics complained that Grimes' high society antics felt out of touch during an era of civil unrest and social change. The show's humor relied on privilege and extravagance, just as the real world was turning toward grit and realism. Behind the cameras, chaos reigned. The scripts were rewritten daily, the tone shifted wildly, and network executives panicked after poor test screenings. Grimes herself admitted later she never quite understood what the show was about. NBC canceled it after only 4 episodes, making it one of the shortest-lived comedies of the decade. For years, The Tammy Grimes Show symbolized everything wrong with network arrogance. Too polished, too forced, and too unaware of the times. Its legacy lives only as a cautionary tale about how even the brightest stage stars can falter under the flicker of television lights. Number 13, Turn On, 1969. Imagine a sketch comedy show so controversial it was canceled before the first episode even finished airing. That was Turn On. ABC tried to replicate the irreverent energy of Laugh-In, but pushed too far. The entire program was computer-paced, meaning no laugh track. No sets, only flashing backgrounds and crude punchlines delivered in rapid fire. The premiere episode on February 13th, 1969, shocked viewers. Its innuendo and jabs at religion and politics triggered outrage almost instantly. One Ohio affiliate famously pulled the plug midway through broadcast, calling the show disgusting. Sponsors bailed before the night was over. Behind the chaos was producer George Schlatter, who believed the future of television lay in total anarchy. But network executives were horrified. Within 24 hours, ABC canceled Turn On entirely. Though it vanished overnight, its influence lingered. Future sketch shows like Saturday Night Live borrowed its fast edits and irreverent tone, but learned to balance edge with charm. Turn On remains television's shortest live show, and one of its boldest failures. It proved that sometimes being too far ahead of your audience means never being seen again. Number 12, The Pruitts of Southampton, 1966. The Pruitts of Southampton was supposed to be NBC's answer to the Beverly Hillbillies, but with an ironic twist. Phyllis Diller starred as Phyllis Pruitt, a once wealthy socialite whose family had gone completely broke, but was ordered by the IRS to keep living as if they were still rich so that America's economy would not collapse. It sounded clever on paper, but the execution was chaotic from the first episode. Critics expected biting satire of the upper class, but what they got was slapstick confusion. Viewers did not know whether to laugh or cringe as Diller juggled debtors, creditors, and dinner parties gone wrong. The show's comedy relied heavily on canned laughter and recycled jokes from older sitcoms. Audiences tuned out within weeks, and the ratings dropped faster than any other NBC comedy that season. Behind the scenes, there was panic. Phyllis Diller wanted more absurd humor, while producers pushed for heartwarming lessons. The clash of tones created episodes that felt stitched together from different shows. Guest stars like Gypsy Rose Lee and Richard Deacon could not save it. The show was renamed The Phyllis Diller Show mid-season in a desperate rebrand, but by then it was too late. When it ended after 30 episodes, critics called it a symbol of overconfidence in celebrity-driven programming. Yet, looking back, the show captured the American fantasy of pretending to be wealthy when you were anything but. In a world obsessed with image, the Pruitts of Southampton was the first to show that illusion could be its own downfall. Number 11. It's About Time, 1966. Imagine a sitcom about two astronauts accidentally traveling back to the Stone Age and befriending cavemen. That was the concept behind It's About Time, created by Sherwood Schwartz, who had just struck gold with Gilligan's Island. On paper, it promised slapstick adventure and fish-out-of-water comedy. On screen, it was pure bedlam. The show opened with two NASA astronauts landing their capsule in prehistoric times and trying to teach cavemen about modern science. The sets looked cheap even for 1960s television, and the humor relied on endless misunderstandings and club-wielding chaos. After a few episodes, audiences lost patience. Critics called it the most exhausting half-hour on television. Desperate to save the show, CBS flipped the premise mid-season. The astronauts returned to the present and brought the cavemen with them, hoping modern society gags would boost ratings. The result was even stranger. Viewers were confused, the tone shifted completely, and cast members complained about constant rewrites. Sherwood Schwartz later admitted the show was rushed into production before the scripts were ready. Executives demanded fast results and ignored test audience warnings. It was canceled after one season, but later found an odd cult following for its theme song and absurd premise. In hindsight, It's About Time perfectly captured the optimism and confusion of the space age. It tried to blend scientific wonder with slapstick and ended up lost between centuries. Sometimes failure itself becomes the most fascinating time capsule of all. Number 10. The Ugliest Girl in Town, 1968. Of all the bizarre premises in television history, The Ugliest Girl in Town remains one of the strangest. The show followed Timothy Blair, a photographer in swinging London who disguises himself as a female model named Timmy to stay close to the woman he loves. The gimmick wore thin after the first episode, but somehow the network thought it would work as a full comedy series. Audiences in 1968 were not amused. The disguise plotline felt awkward and the humor mean-spirited. Critics called it tasteless and confusing. The show tried to ride the wave of British fashion and mod culture, but it came across as an American misunderstanding of London's youth scene. Viewers did not laugh, they winced. Behind the camera, chaos reigned. The network demanded a quick fix to declining ratings, so producers reshot episodes and even changed directors mid-season. Actors complained about inconsistent scripts and the humor's strange tone. What was meant to be cheeky and modern ended up being uncomfortable and dated even in its own time. When ABC canceled it after less than a season, the network tried to bury its existence. Decades later, collectors began trading tapes of the series online, turning it into a bizarre cult curiosity. It has since been ranked among the worst shows ever made, but its legacy endures for one reason. It reminds the industry how easily desperation to chase trends can destroy creativity. The Ugliest Girl in Town was not just a failure. It was a warning that sometimes the pursuit of modernity can make you look more outdated than ever. Number 9. My Living Doll, 1964. Before sitcoms like Bewitched and I, Dream of Jeannie enchanted audiences, there was My Living Doll, a series that tried to blend science fiction, romance, and farce, but instead short-circuited before it ever found its rhythm. The show starred Bob Cummings as Dr. Bob McDonald, a psychiatrist who ends up with a lifelike female robot named Rhoda, portrayed by Julie Newmar, who he must secretly teach how to act like a real woman. The premise was futuristic for its time, and CBS promoted it as a romantic comedy with a scientific twist. Yet the humor felt mechanical, the scripts uneven, and the execution tone deaf. What was meant to be witty commentary on gender and technology came across as awkward and confusing. Critics said it tried too hard to humanize a concept that simply did not work as comedy. Behind the scenes, the situation was even more disastrous. Bob Cummings and Julie Newmar reportedly clashed over direction and tone, and midway through the season, Cummings abruptly quit the show. The absence of its lead destroyed any remaining chance of survival. CBS scrambled to rework episodes, but by then audience interest had collapsed. Only 26 episodes were produced before cancellation. Over time, My Living Doll became a relic of 1960s television hubris, a reminder of how the era's fascination with technology could easily slip into absurdity. Ironically, decades later, its premise would inspire countless science fiction series about artificial intelligence, but My Living Doll never received credit. It malfunctioned too soon, leaving behind the haunting echo of what might have been. Number 8. The Baileys of Balboa, 1964. When CBS realized that Gilligan's Island was about to make waves, they tried to replicate its success with another sea-themed sitcom, The Baileys of Balboa. But this time, lightning did not strike twice. The series followed Sam Bailey, a stubborn boat charter operator, constantly clashing with his wealthy neighbors at a posh California marina. The setup had potential class conflict, beach town humor, and working man charm. But what aired was stiff and lifeless. Critics said it felt like an unfunny echo of McHale's Navy. The cast, led by Paul Ford and Sterling Holloway, tried their best, but the scripts were painfully repetitive. The laugh track could not save the silence that followed each punchline. Behind the scenes, studio politics doomed the show from day one. CBS chief James Aubrey reportedly forced the series into production to please a personal friend. Once Aubrey was fired, The Baileys of Balboa lost its only supporter. With poor ratings and no one left to defend it, the show was canceled after just 26 episodes. Though it vanished quickly, The Baileys of Balboa serves as an emblem of television, nepotism proof that not every series born from executive influence deserves to sail. Its beach-set optimism drowned under waves of mediocrity. Yet, among television historians, it is remembered for one bittersweet reason. It showed how fragile success could be in the ruthless tides of network television. Number 7. Mr. Terrific, 1967. Long before superheroes ruled pop culture, CBS tried to cash in on the craze with Mr. Terrific, a slapstick sitcom about an ordinary gas station attendant who becomes a government agent after taking a power pill that gives him super strength for an hour. The concept sounded like a parody of Superman, but the execution was pure chaos. The special effects were cheap, the writing uneven, and the humor flat. Viewers did not know whether they were watching a spy spoof or a superhero satire. Alan Young, best known for Mr. Ed, played the bumbling hero Stanley Beamish. But even his charm could not rescue the sinking show. Behind the camera, CBS executives fought over tone. Some wanted a tongue-in-cheek adventure like Get Smart, while others wanted straight superhero comedy. The tug-of-war created an identity crisis that confused both writers and viewers. Critics called it an exhausting blend of cartoonish absurdity and Cold War paranoia. The show barely lasted a season before CBS pulled it off the air, but its concept would live on. Years later, Mr. Terrific became a cult curiosity for collectors fascinated by television's earliest attempts to parody heroism. It foreshadowed the awkward superhero comedies of the 1980s, only decades too soon. In hindsight, Mr. Terrific was not a total failure. It was simply misunderstood, a mirror reflecting an age caught between Cold War fear and comic book optimism. Its cancellation was not just about low ratings. It was about a world not yet ready to laugh at its own fantasies. Number 6. The New Monkees, 1969. After the phenomenal success of the Monkees, every network scrambled to duplicate the formula. CBS thought lightning could strike twice, with The New Monkees, a show meant to repackage musical comedy for a younger audience. But what they created instead was a disaster so complete, it became a textbook example of how not to revive a hit. The New Monkees featured 4 new faces trying to imitate the original band's carefree charm, while living in a futuristic mansion full of strange gadgets. The humor was forced, the dialogue awkward, and the songs forgettable. Fans of the original Monkees were furious, while new viewers saw no reason to care. The magic was gone, replaced by mechanical imitation. Behind the scenes, the problems multiplied. The network wanted constant cross-promotion with a planned soundtrack album, but the music flopped before the show even premiered. Scripts went through constant rewrites as writers tried to recapture 60s counterculture energy that had already faded. The result was a show that felt like a ghost, a copy of a copy drained of soul. After just one season, the New Monkees vanished without ceremony. Critics mocked its lifeless energy and hollow nostalgia. Yet, in a strange twist, decades later, collectors rediscovered its surreal aesthetic, and some even praised it as an unintentional satire of corporate media cloning creativity. The New Monkeys proved that television cannot mass-produce lightning. The 60s spirit that birthed rebellion and joy could not be replicated in a boardroom. What was once wild and free became a mechanical echo. In its failure, it exposed the emptiness of imitation. Number 5. The Hathaways, 1961. The Hathaways might just be the strangest family sitcom in television history. It starred Jack Weston and Peggy Cass as a childless couple raising 3 performing chimpanzees as their children. That was the entire premise, and audiences in 1961 could barely believe what they were watching. Each week, the chimps caused chaos around the house, while the parents tried to manage their entertainment careers. ABC billed it as wholesome family fun, but the result was unsettling. Viewers found it weird, uncomfortable, and often sad. The chimpanzees dressed in human clothes stole scenes, but also revealed the absurd cruelty of the concept. Behind the scenes, production was a nightmare. The chimps often bit the actors, destroyed props, and refused to follow direction. Crew members quit after injuries, and handlers constantly intervened to keep the animals under control. Peggy Cass later said the show was the lowest point of her career, while critics called it television's most bizarre experiment. ABC canceled it after 1 season, and it quietly disappeared from syndication. But in retrospect, the Hathaways became a symbol of 60s television's unchecked experimentation. In an era that produced both masterpieces and disasters, this one stood proudly at the bottom. Decades later, historians view it almost with affection, a time capsule of wild ambition gone wrong. The Hathaways proved that the pursuit of novelty can turn into madness, and sometimes the strangest failures are the ones most worth remembering. Number 4. Captain Nice, 1967. Captain Nice arrived on NBC as part of the superhero comedy craze sparked by Batman's campy success. Created by Buck Henry, who had also co-created Get Smart, the show starred William Daniels as Carter Nash, a timid police chemist who accidentally invents a super serum and becomes a reluctant hero. The result was a mix of absurd comedy, slapstick action, and patriotic parody. But viewers did not laugh, they winced. Critics said, Captain Nice looked like a parody of a parody. The jokes were too broad, the costumes ridiculous, and the visual effects non-existent. NBC marketed it as a smart satire, but audiences found it painfully forced. What was meant to mock comic book absurdities ended up embodying them. Behind the scenes, Buck Henry grew frustrated. NBC demanded more action and less wit, turning his clever satire into chaos. Scripts were rewritten overnight, and the tone swung wildly between sitcom and superhero spoof. Daniels, who would later gain fame as the voice of Kit in Knight Rider, reportedly despised wearing the skin-tight costume and performing slapstick stunts. Captain Nice lasted only 15 episodes before being quietly canceled. Yet, it left a small legacy as one of television's first attempts to mock superhero culture. Its failure paved the way for future hits like The Greatest American Hero, which balanced parody with sincerity. In hindsight, Captain Nice was ahead of its time, too smart for slapstick and too silly for satire. It failed to find an audience, but in its collapse, it captured a rare truth that even heroes can fall when their creators lose faith in what makes them human. Number 3. The Tammy Show, 1967. In an era obsessed with variety hours and pop stars, ABC launched The Tammy Show, hosted by country music sensation Tammy Wynette, hoping to fuse Nashville charm with Hollywood glitz. It was meant to rival The Ed Sullivan Show and The Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour, but instead, it fell into television oblivion almost as soon as it began. The Tammy Show promised a blend of music comedy sketches and celebrity interviews wrapped in Southern hospitality. But what unfolded on screen was awkward and inconsistent. The musical numbers were heartfelt, but the comedy bits were forced, and the celebrity guests often looked confused about how to interact with Wynette's quiet sincerity. The result was a tonal clash between country soul and television polish. Behind the scenes, producers fought constantly over direction. Some wanted a country showcase, while others demanded a mainstream variety format. Tammy Wynette herself was uncomfortable with scripted comedy and struggled with the rigid taping schedule. The show's rural identity clashed with the network's urban image, alienating both audiences. ABC tried to retool the program midway through its short run by adding pop acts and edgier humor, but it only made things worse. Ratings plummeted and sponsors pulled out. After 1 season, it was gone. Years later, Fans of Tammy Wynette rediscovered clips and found something hauntingly sincere beneath the awkwardness. The Tammy Show was not a failure of talent, but of translation proof that authenticity cannot survive when forced into a mold. In trying to make her into a television personality, the network drowned out what made her real. Number 2. The Jean Arthur Show, 1966. When veteran actress Jean Arthur came to television after decades of film stardom, CBS promoted it as a major cultural event. The Jean Arthur Show cast her as a compassionate lawyer named Patricia Marshall, working alongside her son in a small law firm. The network believed Arthur's charm and wit could translate easily from silver screen to small screen. They were wrong. The problem was not Arthur's talent, it was the material. The scripts were stiff, humorless, and oddly out of touch with modern television pacing. Each episode played like a stage play that refused to end. Viewers expecting sparkle got lectures about morality and social duty. Critics said it felt like watching a school play performed by legends who did not want to be there. Behind the scenes, John Arthur clashed with producers over creative control. She wanted thoughtful stories with social value, while CBS demanded lighthearted comedy to match the network's primetime image. The tension made filming miserable. Crew members described long delays and multiple rewrites per episode. After 12 episodes, CBS canceled the show quietly. Arthur retreated from Hollywood altogether, never acting again. In retrospect, the Jean Arthur Show symbolizes the painful transition between eras when old Hollywood met the restless modern world of television and could not adapt. It is a reminder that charm and legacy cannot save a show built on confusion. What made Jean Arthur timeless in film could not be replicated under studio lights and canned laughter. Number 1. The New People, 1969. In the closing months of the 1960s, ABC attempted something bold, a youth-driven social experiment disguised as a drama series. The New People imagined a group of college students surviving a plane crash on a deserted island, forced to build a new society from scratch. It sounded like Lord of the Flies meets counterculture idealism, young Americans freed from the rules of the old world. But what aired was an ambitious mess that no audience could quite understand. The series premiered in September of 1969 as part of ABC's attempt to reach the generation protesting in the streets. Each episode tackled real issues, race, gender, drugs, politics, but filtered through heavy-handed dialogue and melodramatic speeches. Critics called it Gilligan's Island with guilt. The writing swung between brilliance and unbearable earnestness, often lecturing instead of entertaining. Behind the camera, things were even more chaotic. Created by Rod Serling, the visionary behind The Twilight Zone, the show suffered from relentless network interference. Executives feared the political tone would alienate advertisers, while Serling wanted raw realism and moral confrontation. The resulting compromise was tone-deaf, part survival thriller, part student council debate. Ratings collapsed within weeks. Viewers expecting adventure got philosophy. Those expecting philosophy got cliches. After just 17 episodes, ABC canceled it, leaving the survivors' utopia unresolved. Yet with time, The New People gained a strange afterlife. Decades before Lost or Survivor, it experimented with serialized storytelling and social allegory on network TV. It failed in execution, but not in ambition. In many ways, it was a generation's dream broadcast, too soon an idealistic cry from a world trying to rebuild itself. The 1960s gave us television legends, but it also gave us disasters that faded almost instantly. Each of these flops tells a story of risk, hope, and miscalculation, where creativity collided with chaos. Which forgotten show deserves a second chance? Share your thoughts, hit like and subscribe for more journeys into television's most fascinating failures.